Secondly, the Afrikaner issue creates outrage in South Africa, but it has created enormous self-mobilization behind South Africa. For example, with our Israel position or our Russia, they're coming back, they're saying, no, the attack on you is more important. This Afrikaner thing is ludicrous. And they're bringing new allies, like, from example, Europe, are rallying to us.
And today, to open this new chapter in our relations, Europe can contribute with, as you mentioned, the 4.7 billion euro investment package. We call it Global Gateway. As you said, it is around about 94 billion rand. And with this package, we want to...
Guys, this is really important update for South Africa and South Africans in the wake of the fact that earlier today, South Africa's ambassador to the United States, Ibrahim Rasool, was expelled, so to speak, and placed on a status of a persona non grata based on a speech which he made at a Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection webinar, where he actually described what was going on, especially from the perspective of South Africa, of the geopolitical tensions between the United States and South Africa. And, in that speech, he mentioned about how, South Africans shouldn't panic. This was the message generally I could hear from his speech.
Secondly, the Afrikaner issue creates outrage in South Africa, but it has created enormous self-mobilization behind South Africa. It consolidates our African base. It returns old allies who were disenchanted, for example, with our Israel position or our Russia. They're coming back. They're saying, no, the attack on you is more important. This Afrikaner thing is ludicrous. And they're bringing new allies, like, from example, Europe, are rallying to us. So again, don't panic in South Africa about it. It's working in our favor in the USA.
Now, if you've not listened to that full speech, I encourage you to go back to my previous video where I made a video on Ibrahim Rasool and him being expelled as a US ambassador, and listen to the full speech. It's really interesting because this is a perspective of the South African foreign policy and how South Africa's foreign policy views, its relation with the US, and why probably South Africa now has had its ambassador kicked out of the US. But this Mapungubwe, in this Mapungubwe, organized webinar, Ibrahim Rasool actually spoke to the fact that South Africans do not need to panic, that probably all the things that are actually going on right now between, the diplomatic tension between the US and South Africa are actually almost, in a way, if I could hear him correctly, he spoke to the fact that it was working in South Africa's favor, because right now there are other partners like the EU and probably some other partners who are willing to step in to fill in the gap that the United States especially was filling in terms of its aid. We know that the US has withdrawn PEPFAR, the PEPFAR aid that was actually supporting the, I think, almost 8 million HIV positive South Africans, where I think I saw an article that said South Africa has the highest number of HIV positive patients in the world. All right, so PEPFAR was supporting that. USAID also was supporting South Africa, I think, in some some quarters, so to speak. To, I think, one of them, I made a video on that anyway. There were some that supported its governance, some supported trade and all that, but all of that is gone now. There's also the threat of AGOA, because it's now that the diplomatic tensions are being heightened. I'm also really worried. I don't know if President Ramaphosa would respond to the United States by expelling United States ambassador to South Africa back to the United States as well. And once that happens, we know that this is full-blown I don't know if to call it a conflict anyway, but that's actually something I'm afraid of. But also at the same time, I know the way ANC comrades would think that, why wouldn't we respond in the same light? If, our ambassador can be kicked out like that, why shouldn't we kick out the ambassador of the US to South Africa? We are really still waiting for South Africa's response. But anyway, Ibrahim Rasool stated to the effect, to that fact, that, the partners like the EU and some other partners are willing, they have support from that wing. And so that South Africans should not be afraid. South Africans should not panic. And in that light, this was a presentation he gave. I really don't remember the date anyway, but that speech was the basis for which he was given he was placed on a persona non grata status as South Africa's ambassador. Now, it now gives me more interest to go back to Ursula von Leyen's speech. I think this was about 3 days ago, where Antonio Costa, who is the president of the European Council, I think this is Antonio Costa is actually, Antonio Costa is the president of the European Council, while Ursula von Leyen, we all know her, she's really popular with the as the president of the EU Commission. Yes, this would be Ursula von Leyen would be the president of the European Commission. All right. So both of them visited South Africa. I think this was 2-3 days ago, thereabout. And I had to go back now to listen to her speech once more, and I'll be playing that soon. But some of the messages I'm getting from this whole thing is, I think last year there was a really big buzz around the EU Global Gateway making some heavy investments into Rwanda. I think one of those investments were even up to the tune of 900 billion, I think, to support vaccine production in Rwanda. Yes, I found that. So it says that Ursula von Leyen, she actually visited, and there was a pledge of a signature of 40 million euros financial agreement to strengthen Rwanda's ecosystem for manufacturing health products, for boosting African healthcare from within. All right. So there were lots of investment pumped into Rwanda by this global gateway, which actually was argued to be an agreement by what Ursula von Leyen, even in this video, calls Team Europe, to bolster Africa's production of its own vaccines. All right. Rwanda got a huge share of all of that, I think, last year. But in the wake of President Paul Kagame's in the wake of allegations that the Rwandan government had been supporting M23 in the DRC, and President Tshisekedi actually, calling for help from, global partners. I think right now, even the United States is about to sign a deal with the DRC for protection in that light. And so with what President Ramaphosa called a phased out exit of SADC's troops, SADC will be taking out its troops from the DRC. I think that President Tshisekedi might favor the deal with the United States. It's almost like the same deal with President Trump wants to sign with Ukraine, which is kind of like a minerals deals where American private companies will be stationed in these regions. Then that will serve as a basis for protection. All right. So the DRC, I think, wants to adopt that kind of approach in order to repel M23 rebels, which actually have been a threat to Tshisekedi's stability and his regime. All right. So with SADC troops leaving, South Africa's troops leaving as well, and if Tshisekedi of the DRC takes that deal with the United States, we might be seeing what might be a full frontal turn, kind of like a back turn of probably EU investments from Rwanda, because right today I actually read that there's been European states that have actually been calling for the EU to stop its support for Rwanda. So one crucial element to understand this whole dynamics is the fact that many European states have been calling for financial aid from Europe to be taken out. I think there were these agreements that were signed between Rwanda and many of these states. Rwanda was once what they called a darling to many of these EU countries, but now I found this news here that says that Germany is actually the latest European nation to freeze fresh aid to Rwanda. All right. So Rwanda has been a darling, but because of its alleged support for M23 rebels, here it says that Rwandan troops are still operating in Eastern DRC and supporting M23, thus violating the sovereignty of the DRC. Therefore, Germany's at BMZ_Bund is putting new financial commitments on hold and currently reviewing our bilateral development cooperation with Rwanda, says the German Foreign Office on X. All right. So there's been this fresh clashes between Rwanda. I think even Rwanda actually is almost, I don't want to use the word fine, but it says that Rwanda, in response to this, actually, accused the US, the United Kingdom, for backing out on a migrant deportation plan. I think this deportation plan, Julius Malema actually sent a harsh critique to President Paul Kagame for treating black Africans as slaves, so to speak. But anyway, that will be another video. But anyway, Rwanda actually blames the UK for turning its back on that deal and actually asks the UK to pay £50 million in compensation for that move. But also at the same time, Rwanda also has suspended development cooperation with Belgium. All right, so it's almost looking like the EU, a lot of EU areas are beginning to turn their back from Rwanda, and South Africa now seems to be maybe stepping in to take that position. Because if you listen to Ursula von Leyen's speech here, she speaks about how the EU, or a global gateway, what she calls Team Europe, are pledging to invest 94 billion rand in South Africa. All right, she speaks about how this investment would go towards the just energy transition, which Donald Trump actually thinks is he called it a green scam, or I don't know how he referred to, but I think that was in his speech to the parliament. Ursula von Leyen, in this speech, I'll be playing the speech soon, but I just wanted you guys to understand the context in case you really don't want to watch the speech. But she actually argues that, the EU is actually here to stay with South Africa while the others are backing out. She speaks about how the investment of 94 billion rand, right? I mentioned that 94 billion rand would support investment in railway for connectivity, and also support in investment in digital networks to connect South Africa to the rest of the world. She actually argues that there's actually 17 million euros to be invested also in vaccines and medications that will be produced in South Africa. All right, so South Africa will not need to be importing vaccines and all of that. But now South Africa, this was actually almost the same deal that went down, I think last year thereabout, that these vaccines will be produced in Rwanda. But now I think a part of that whole investment will be coming out to South Africa. She also argues that the EU wants to join forces now to fight with South Africa, to join forces with South Africa to fight diseases, because she argues that diseases don't know no borders. She actually thinks about that the EU is South Africa's largest trading partner, and they want to really deepen that relationship between South Africa and the EU, especially now that the US is actually, I think, turning its back from South Africa, especially with when we see South Africa's response to the ejection of Ibrahim Rasool as South Africa's ambassador to the US. If South Africa retaliates, then we know that AGOA for sure is gone. But anyway, the EU actually pledges that it will be investing 94 billion rand, in that. And I think that would be a really huge replacement. That's 4.7 billion euros. So let's quickly listen to Ursula von Leyen actually give this speech on, the intentions the European Union, I think the European Commission has in this new relationship with South Africa in the wake of its geopolitical tensions with the United States. And share your thoughts, guys. Share your thoughts in the comments.
Good afternoon. President Ramaphosa, dear Cyril, thank you very much for the warm welcome and your hospitality. Thank you for receiving the President of the European Council, my friend Antonio Costa, and me here in Cape Town, the mother city. Today it serves as the perfect backdrop for a new chapter in European Union South African relations. My dear Cyril, just 2 weeks ago, I stood at the Gandhi Memorial in New Delhi. And I reflected on the 21 years Gandhi spent here in South Africa, where he forged the principles that shaped his journey as a global leader. And we can take it as a sign that Europe's next crucial partnership must be with South Africa, a regional powerhouse, a strong voice for the global South. We both are vibrant democracies. We both have chosen unity in diversity. And we are both striving for a safe and prosperous future for our people. We stand for rules-based international order. And we stand for the rule of law over the rule of force. So today, here we are with Antonio at our first summit, Antonio and my first summit together, with a third country. What a perfect occasion. Thank you so very much, and I'm very glad that it is South Africa. Dear Cyril, we spoke together at G20 in Rio in November about green hydrogen and renewables. And today, to open this new chapter in our relations, Europe can contribute with, as you mentioned, the 4.7 billion euro investment package. We call it Global Gateway. As you said, it is around about 94 billion rand. And with this package, we want to work together on three key initiatives. First, together we invest massively in projects that support the Just Energy Transition Partnership. For example, an investment platform that will boost green hydrogen, batteries, renewables, all strategic industries for the future. We know that others are withdrawing, so here we want to be very clear with our message. We're doubling down with our support. We are here to stay. Second point, with this package, we are also investing in connectivity. We're investing in transport corridors like the north-south Lubumbashi to Durban route, to upgrade railway and port infrastructure, so important for connectivity. And we are also investing together in digital networks. We will work on fiber and 5G, for example, so that South Africa as a whole country is connected, but also, of course, connected to the rest of the world. Finally, on health, indeed, we both learned bitter lessons during COVID-19. And therefore, we support your pharmaceutical industry with 700 million euro because it means vaccines and medication produced in South Africa for the people of South Africa and the wider African continent. And it is both in our shared interest and in the interest of global health that we promote here the pharmaceutical industry, because we know that diseases do not know any borders, so we have to join forces to fight them. This package will already make a big impact on our economies and the creation of good jobs, but now we have decided to go further. The European Union is South Africa's largest trading partner. We are launching now negotiations on a new generation of trade deal. We call it a clean trade and investment partnership. And South Africa will be the first to sign such an agreement. Basically, it is focusing on investment in clean energy transition, from hydrogen to renewable, you name it, but of course very much focusing also on skills, on the new technologies of the future. And important is for us that we develop strategic industries from the start to the finished product. So creating good jobs and growth right here in South Africa. We put a lot of emphasis on what you call, dear Cyril, beneficiation. So that for us it's a key principle that we invest that the local value chain is being developed, that the added value stays here in South Africa. This is for us important. South Africa will benefit, our companies will benefit, and I think this is a true win-win situation. Our partnership will also extend to critical raw materials. We're here to invest along the full value chain too, from exploration to recycling. And we want to work together on the key industries of the future. I mentioned green hydrogen, but also, of course, electric vehicles and battery production, for example. I look forward to the signing of a memorandum of understanding. Our teams are working for it. And our plan is that we are able to sign in the margins of G20. Finally, dear Cyril, together we have launched a global campaign to power Africa with clean energy. As we all know, Africa has an enormous potential for renewable energy. The world is finally recognizing it. The World Bank has just joined our efforts, which is fantastic news, I think. We call it Scaling Up Renewables in Africa. And together we want to deliver cleaner, more sustainable power to millions of people. This autumn, again, in the margins of G20, we will hold a major pledging event to rally the world around this cause. It will take place in Johannesburg. Today's Global Gateway Package is, and its focus on clean energy is already a significant pledge, and we hope that it is a strong signal to others to join this pledge and to contribute. So, President Ramaphosa, dear Cyril, as Antonio already said, we are 100% behind you in making South Africa's G20 presidency a big success. This is going to be the first G20 summit ever held on the African continent. I think it's a powerful symbol. And it is an opportunity to drive real progress towards a more equitable and more sustainable world in line with your priorities. So we cannot wait to be back in South Africa. Thank you again, Cyril, for the warm hospitality and the excellent summit. Thanks a lot.